right, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Rise Urban Nation. I got a special guest. Sometimes we have technical difficulties. It's one of those episodes we had some technical difficulties, but I think that's because the episode is about to be hot like fire, and it's just gonna be to a whole nother meter. It's probably gonna break the scales, but we gonna make it work. We gonna make it work. Got my friend, my sister, Deidra, in the building today. How are you, ma'am?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. Where you joining us from? Just out of curiosity.
Dallas, Texas.
Dallas, Texas. All right. Y'all still in all the business, because all the corporations moving over there. Y'all got to incorporate. Y'all got a great tax rate for businesses. So y'all about to be booming. Business is booming in Texas. I guess everything's in big in Texas, even business.
Yeah, even the traffic. Yeah, we're feeling all of that. So yes.
Has traffic got worse or better since COVID?
Worse.
Really?
Worse. Yes, because now everybody's working on things and everybody's just out here. We outside.
Yeah, we outside.
We are outside.
All right, no more teleworking. We outside. Now, refresh my memory. How did we get connected with each other? Was it a PR agency? Like, how did we get connected?
Yeah. So yeah, PR agency, ALA.
Okay.
Yes.
That's my sis right there. That's big sis right there. She is the business. I love her. I'm gonna have her on an episode in a couple of weeks here. So yes, I love it. How did y'all get connected?
I'll be on the watch out. One of my good friends is out in Colombia, and she was like, I have someone I want you to meet. And I didn't even know what I was getting into, and it's been great. So,
wait, we got more Black folks moving out to Colombia? Like, I need to go out to Colombia now and see what the business is.
Yes, COVID helped because you could work remote. So you just, pack up.
Hey, that's true. That's true. All right. So, Deidra, for the people who don't know who you are, I like to start off with the question, instead of like the regular job question, tell me about yourself. I'm going to go with, who are you? Who is Deidra? And you could take that wherever you want to go.
Oh, who is Deidra? Man, resilient, determined, a support system. I am a sister. I am a daughter. I am your homegirl. Your ride or die.
I love it.
I am the person that you want in your corner. Okay. Like, yes. But yeah, that is who I am in a nutshell.
I love it. Like, I always like to see how different attributes of how people introduce themselves, because there's so many things that make up who we are. I often tell people, people see me as a black man first, but I'm so many more things before you even get to that layer. I'm a sister. I'm not a sister. I'm a brother. I'm a dad. I'm a homie. I'm a big homie, right? Like I'm all these other things.
Yep.
That's just one layer, right?
Yeah, they just look at the book.
Yeah. Let's get into the chapters real quick.
Yes. Even the table of content, okay? Like, let's just see what we're about a little bit.
Just a little bit, just a tad bit. So tell me, what industry are you in? I know you just did a pitch and whatnot, and what are you in the business of, and what do you do?
Yeah, so nonprofits right now, supporting adults with their literacy. Nice. So just a huge passion of mine, and it is definitely needed. So really just trying to figure out a space for a forgotten about population. Yeah.
How'd you get into this work?
So fun fact. So I was an adult who was functionally illiterate, and due to my own shame, I wasn't comfortable going to any of the organizations that were available because they were all group settings. And at that time, I had a career, I was working, and I was terrified about being exposed. So I just kept surviving. And then one day I just got tired. Like, man, there's so much greatness within me, and there's so many things that I want to do, but I lack this essential skill. And then I had a light bulb moment one day. I was like, man, I'm working so hard to hide it. What if I work just as hard to fix it? And then I just started realizing that I wasn't the only one. There were so many others that shared in my story, and there weren't a lot of opportunities for us to really be able to reach those people that need it.
Nice. I love that. I think I resonate with that because as a kid, I grew up with the label of ADD, attention deficit disorder, and then they try to tell me, he can't learn as fast and as well as the other kids, and so sometimes I struggled in school just because I just wasn't connected. So I often would
Mm-hmm.
would find myself being a class clown or not really being engaged in certain activities just because I felt the curriculum wasn't speaking to me or I just wasn't engaged, right? And so
Yeah.
I definitely feel that.
Yeah. And that's real. So for me it was I rather get in trouble than to be made fun of.
Mm.
So how can I how can I avoid that and I'll get in trouble all day long.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Cause ain't nobody gonna punk me. So
that right there.
and then that's why I think that's how you see some people go their whole career and be able to hide it. I think because I'm from Washington D.C., so I remember uh, I think it's Doug Williams, one of the people who just went his whole life, got into a professional football career and was able to do it without really reading, and then they found out about it. It's like, wait, how did you go your whole life without really understanding how to read, right? And it's incredible how you can avoid it and still find a way to progress somehow, right?
Hmm.
So, so that's the story.
Yeah, I always tell people, yeah, I always tell people, it's when you hide it, it's easy. It's easy because people who have problems or learning differences, as we like to say, they're not stupid. They're just missing something, and
Mm.
they just have to get creative on how they navigate through life with it.
Yeah, I love that. So, how have you been able to get creative with this organization to help individuals navigate and really get the things that they need to overcome, triumph, be successful?
Yeah. So honestly, the first part was
Mm.
sharing, not being too ashamed to share. And if I could be honest, I was. I'm like, I'm not telling nobody. I'm just going to start this nonprofit. It's going to be great. No one needs to know my backstory to it. And I have a friend who is just amazing and holds me accountable. And she was like, friend, I got to tell you something. I'm like, yeah, okay, what's up? And she was just like, you can't do this work if you're not going to really fully be in it. And I said, what you mean? Like, I've invested, I've done all these things. So I'm over here like a little on the defense, right? And she's just like, no, you need to share your story. And
Mm.
I'm like, oh, yeah, no, I didn't sign up for that. I don't want to do that. And after talking, I decided to share. And it was amazing because I feared sharing, right? We hear so many things about don't be the weakest
Mm.
link. Don't be the person in your circle that's holding you down. If so, you need a better circle. But what does that look like if you think that you are the weakest link?
Mm.
And then you have no circle to be a part of, right? So I was just terrified on so many levels. And when I first shared, um, what I got was something completely different than what I always feared.
Mm.
It was DMs, it was phone calls, it was so many people telling me, oh my God, you know my story, you understand me. I've been waiting for something like this, like all of the things. And I really had an out of body experience of as people were talking, because it was just back to back. It was just one of very audibly of you have been hiding and these people have been waiting for you.
Mm.
And that just, it, here we are. Every time, even now doing the podcast, there's a little part of me that's like, no, this is so vulnerable. But I share and I'm doing this because I want people who share in my same experience that, there's hope for them and it's not too late. And yes, it's hard, but if you're willing to do the work, you can do it and you can do it for free.
Mm.
So,
That is beautiful.
so that was the biggest number one thing. And outside of that, it's just really like meeting people where they are, like not making them, not asking, well, how'd you get here and what happened to you? We don't care how you got here, you're here. We don't care if it was through the system, if it was yourself, if you were just a troubled youth. Like, we're not interested in the how, we just want to help you fix it.
Mm.
So I think just being able to meet people on that level of really giving them an even playing field, because there's so many times where we're having to defend or we're probably having to experience shame because of how our life has taken us. I think just really letting them know that, like, you're in a safe space. This is a place where you don't have to hide. This is a place where you don't have to have it or pretend, because we need to know what you need so we can give it to you. So I think just kind of laying that, as an even playing field for them is so, so important. And then just doing the work. When they first start off, it's hard. And it's not so much the work is hard, it's just you're going through these like psychological things that it's just hard. And imagine you have a peer like, you're teaching me how to read. I'm embarrassed. I don't want you to know that, right? So there's just all these breakdowns, and it's just about a level of patience that you really have to meet them. And those are just some of the basic, most important ways at first before we even just do the work.
I love it. I love it. I think what I love so much about your story is this one, your braveness and willingness to now share your story. And tell me, like, because you've been able to create this space, this safe space for people to come and be vulnerable, and because of your bravery to share your story, I can only imagine that you've empowered others to, not only have a safe space, but a brave space to come out and say, you know what, sis, I'm there with you, and here's my story. For lack of better words, it's almost like Alcohol Anonymous. Like, everybody's coming to get therapy, and then they're sharing.
Yes.
Have you seen, like, significant results in somebody being able to kind of now have a space to share their story, which allows them the I don't know what you call it, that that thing to help them just move forward in miraculous ways?
Yeah, but it looks different. So we do really focus on a discrete option. So we do one-on-one. So they're never in a group setting. But what is different is, because they now have courage to share, it's their family members that they're referencing to the program. It's their best friends. It's them sharing with people that they know, have the same struggle or whatever that looks like to do the program. I remember when we first started, we had two of our adult learners. They were brother and sister. We had no idea. They had different last names. They didn't even know that each other were in the program, but they both were trying to tell the other about a program that they wanted the other to do. And that is when they realized they were in the same exact program with the same tutor. Like, it was just because we have, several different tutors, and it was just amazing. So we're seeing it from that way of people not being afraid to share with others that they know that need the support. So it's creating community in a very different way. So I think so many times, we want to hold good information to ourselves, but these are people that are going to the program and seeing the benefit. Every time when we have new intakes, I always ask, our adult learners, that's what we call them, how did you find out about us? And literally like 80% of the time, someone told me about the program that's in the program. We don't, I don't ask who told you, but I'm like, oh, okay. So, so we're really getting that word of mouth. So it is empowering them in a different way. And I think, we had one of our adult learners who was like, my husband doesn't know. I need to do it between these two times while he's at work, because 2:00, this day only works for me because he has a doctor's appointment or whatever that looked like. And we did a fundraiser. And not only did she donate, but you could put like right on the wall or be anonymous. And she wrote her whole name and said how much the program was changing her life. And that, I didn't even care about the monetary donation. I was just like, okay, like this is the same person who was terrified for her husband to know. And now publicly on our social media, she put her first and last name, and she's testifying about how this program is changing her life. So that was a huge win for me. Like, you couldn't have, like, I was on cloud nine.
That is, man. So kudos to you for being able to do this. What do you think it is? Because I feel in some ways that because we have, like, me not coming out of the school system, ADD, not being able to learn what I need to learn, and then end up learning it later. What do you think is, in reference to the field that you're in, broken within our school systems that kind of needs to change, like from your perspective, to kind of foster more environments that you've been able to do to really elevate, literacy across America, especially for our underserved
Yeah,
populations?
that's always, yeah, that's always a really big question because it's so many layers.
Mm,
But I always like to stab at it. But really and truly, it really starts with the number of students that a teacher has in their class.
mm,
Because as you know, each person needs something completely different.
mm,
So when you have a teacher that can have anywhere from 22 to 30 students, depending on the school district or where they are, that's a lot for one person when you're talking about children, really trying to identify what they need. Because remember, it's a classroom setting where they're teaching and they're able to see, check comprehension through quizzes or maybe calling on students. But you're always going to have those students that pick up and that are always raising their hand to answer the question and getting it right. And sometimes it's harder or it's a delayed in finding out who's missing certain things. The second part of that is I think, and it's fair, in my opinion, I think we put a lot on educators when it's really a partnership with parents.
mm,
And that leads me to the teacher is teaching your child while they're in school. They're coming home to do homework with the parent. But you run into a couple of things. Most parents nowadays, it's single parent household, so they're working multiple jobs, or those parents might be functionally illiterate themselves, and they can't provide something that they don't have, and there's a sense of shame and trying to hide. So then it's a lack of interest in the work. It's a lack of checking in, and it's this heavy expectation on the teachers.
mm.
Second, I think COVID is a great example of my next statement is we try things and we don't know if they work until 10 years later. We
True.
have all these initiatives and so everyone's making the joke of, well, we don't know what we're going to get from this COVID era, like what our doctors are going to look like, because we had to just pass through students because the world was in a pandemic. And I don't know about where you are, but here we passed them through. So in that, I think people have the best intention, but you don't know what the result of that is until years later,
Mm,
right? We think about when I was in school, we didn't have like, if you, had just certain learning differences or if you truly had a chemical thing where you couldn't learn, we were all in the same class. I was in a special ed class that had two teachers, and if we physically can like stand up on our own and feed ourselves and all of that, we didn't get any attention. And it was at that time they did have a specials class to help, but everyone in that room just needed different things. So again, it's these initiatives put in place where we think that we're doing what's best, but it's not until we have the research and the data to really be able to say that didn't work, let's shift.
mm.
So we keep shifting. We
Yeah.
keep shifting to do something different. Then we just started teaching, children how to pass tests. And we moved away from just the basics of different things. So it's a really complex answer in that because there's so many things that are really at hand, but we definitely need to do something different.
Yeah, and I often used to say that when I used to do workforce development and within working in conjunction with the school systems, and I remember thinking to myself and looking over some of like the No Child Left Behind programs and what they kind of did with college first and testing. I think it really left some kids behind because there was those kids who don't want to go to college and don't test well. Where was their place to learn, grow, create, explore, and so forth. So it looks like you were about to say something. What was you about to say?
I was gonna say the No Child Left Behind. That was one of the
Mm,
examples. They had it in their best, I think, best intention. Yes, No Child Left Behind. Let's do it. But to your point, there were people left behind.
mm,
There are people today that are still reaping the effects of that, and not in the best way, right? Um, Even for me, I went to college, but I went to college with the support of my dad. Like I would come home crying. I don't know what's going on, and he would just give me your book, come back in 2 hours, so he could just put it in a language that I understood. and it was funny about family members or just different things, but it helped me to remember it. So when I went to the test, I could do well, right? But that was extra work and it was exhausting, but I was so determined to do it because it wasn't in the cards for me. And that's where my resilient bone comes in is, okay, these are not in the cards for me, so let me make it happen. Everyone thinks it's not going to happen, so I need to make it happen. But it was extremely challenging. Yeah. Like, there were days I was like, I don't even know why I'm here.
I think a lot of us, especially if you were a first-time college student, you have those experiences and you're like, man, I don't think this is for me. Like, I'm out here and these people different. This whole system, I don't understand it. Like,
yes, and if you having to like just work to survive, where your financial aid covered your school, but it's not covering anything else, like. I wasn't I was a commuter student, essentially. I was going to school and going to work, having to squeeze in those study times. Like, I didn't have that luxury of, I'm on campus. Yes, I'm doing this 2-hour study. Nope, I don't have time for that because my rent needs to be paid.
Man, and then they talk about, you need to, if you want to get that good job, you need to take an internship. Like, when I'm going to have time to do that?
In a non-paid internship at that.
It's like, couldn't your dad, like my dad can't hook me up with no high-end internship. What are you talking about?
Right. So yeah, so many different things, but something does have to change, I think, and I think teachers are tired right now. So, and I don't ever really like to lead with this, and some of them just shouldn't be teaching. We just want to be honest. There's fields that people are in that they just shouldn't be in, because I always say, as a teacher, you have such a powerful role. You can impact a student beyond, or you can tear them down.
Yeah.
It's up to you.
Yeah. And, here's my thing about teaching. And then, I want to get your take on this because for so many years, I used to go back to the schools and mentor and do some teaching. But I didn't consider myself a teacher because I didn't go to school to teach. I don't have any teaching degrees or credentials. They didn't see me as teachers because I didn't get, those classifications behind your name that makes you a teacher. And so somebody, I think it was another Black teacher, said, hey, I want you to know that you're an educator. You're an educator too, because you came in here, you gave us a lesson of a lifetime. So I want you to consider yourself an educator from here on out. Do you consider yourself an educator? And when you look at our community, I feel like it takes different modes of education to educate us. We can't just have one form of classroom classic lesson type education. People have, as you said, alluded earlier, different learning modalities, right? So I think we need to relook at education and who we call educators and diversify somehow.
Yeah, it's so funny. I totally agree with that, actually. I don't think that, of course, we don't want to take away from any of the educators, but that got the degrees behind their name. But when you talk about education, life is education. Life is the best teacher that you can ever have. And I think so many times, especially, let me talk about low poverty, communities. We're behind the ball. There's a lot of things that weren't instilled, that weren't taught. We have survival. We learn well at home how to smell good and make sure that you look good. Okay. Like, make sure that you are clean when you're going to school. You don't be out here embarrassing me. But but I always say, like, but even in that, how do you teach someone when they have such, let's just take, money management. You are in so much debt and you don't even know what to do, to where, how do you then teach lessons to people to give them hope to get out of debt? I always make the joke, I was broke. I have 12 siblings. And it just wasn't one of those things where, you got everything paid for. No, you're 18. Go ahead and get out there and work. And I had to fumble through money management and what that looks like. So even in my role today, I get the opportunity to teach people, okay, when you broke, let me tell you how to make it work and how to get out of where you are. You need to know all your bills when they're due, the ones that have late fees, if you pay them late, the ones you have grace periods that won't hit your credit. So that's learning because then you don't stay stuck, right? So, and I give that a very little example of it's not just one thing, it's so many things. And it's also about introducing, like what we're talking, I focus with reading, but opening up people's minds to just different like types of books. And it's not all, yes, we have some of the great popular books, but I just read the 50 Cent book and I loved it. And I keep referring it to people because there were so many lessons and I didn't think that it would be. I was just open, like, yeah, I want to read something different. And probably hands down, like I've gifted it to like 10 people. They're over me. They're like, girl, if you give me another book. But it opened up their mind to something different because everyone is into different things, you know? So I totally agree that, especially, and it's a part of our job as a community to educate one another.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Yeah, I'm into that too. So now you put another book on my radar. I wasn't even checking for the 50 Cent book, but now that you said that it got some lessons in there, I'm about to hit that up.
Like good life, like I'm not kidding, like good.
Okay.
Like, look, don't be surprised you're gonna see it in your mailbox. Deidra didn't send me this book. Yes, I did.
Oh, trust me, I know 50 Cent got it in him, but you know, with all his shenanigans, sometimes I forget. Like, okay, in order for somebody to get to that level of success, they got some lessons that they probably learned in life and some gems they could probably give you.
Listen, and the funny thing is, it is all calculated, all of his shenanigans, and he breaks it down. And I was just like, well, this right here, this is genius. It is good. I don't want to give any spoilers, okay. But yes.
Okay, good to know. Good to know.
It's good.
So I want to dive into the journey because I know some little girl gonna pick this up like, yo, I'm trying to be like Deidra. You see how she over here changing the world. She the next, Amanda Gorman for readers. she over here giving master classes every day. So let me start with first. I always like to ask this question because I like to go back and show the young folks or people with those limiting beliefs how it started and then where it went to. So what was your first job?
Ice cream. I was scooping
out
ice
cream. I would have never guessed that.
I
thought
was.
You was going to say movie theaters or something like that.
That was my second job. Yep. Yep. I was scooping out ice cream. And at that time, you don't have to read when you're scooping out ice cream. You're just scooping out ice cream.
So true.
I need a
job. Now, was there anything that you could say that from those first job experiences that you learned that, there was probably subtle lessons, but you kind of taking those lessons with you today? Anything that you could recall?
I think pushing myself past my limits. It was a physical job. And where it's physical, I'm not so much talking about my physical limits, but my mental limits. So there's so many times that we get stuck mentally that we already shut down. We already have, written off the business, written off the relationship, just, oh, nope, it can't happen because we're not mentally strong. And I think for me in scooping ice cream, it was rock hard. And I'm thinking, how am I going to do this fast? All these different things. And it was just creating a system. And I was just surprised with just my physical limitations when I really tried to figure it out.
Nice.
So I parallel that to my mental. When you're mentally strong, when you mentally know your why, no matter what obstacle or what you feel like is going to stop you, you'll be able to do it.
Yeah, I probably would say that mental fortitude has probably helped you out today because starting the program is hard, especially something like this. And then to turn it into a nonprofit, man, props to you. Now, what were the steps that you think, if you could break down like the steps, what were the steps that you think helped you to kind of really build that program and turn, your nonprofit into the success that it is today?
Yeah. So another thing, we started this nonprofit in the midst of COVID.
What?
Like, yes, listen, I was just like, Lord, is this a joke? Like, I was so, but I share that to say, before doing anything, and I'm going to talk about like entrepreneurship, before doing anything, and even if it's not entrepreneur, there needs to be a strong why. There has to be a passion that is beyond the dollar, because anything worth doing, anything that you're passionate about, the start is always rough. And if your only end game is the financial piece, it won't ever work. My first step was knowing the why. My why was my personal story. My why was, I know how limiting my life was. I know how hopeless my life was because I lacked such an essential skill that was truly a justice that was owed to me. It wasn't a gift. It wasn't something that only privileged people have. Everybody deserves that. So having a strong enough why and really knowing the benefit that it has is super important. I never looked at starting this as how rich can I
Mm,
get? How much money is it going to bring me? It was truly a service that I wanted to provide to other people,
mm-hmm.
right? So that was my first step. My second step was doing the research, figuring it out. What does it take to start a business? And again, I didn't even want to start a business. I want to start a nonprofit. And I had to do research, and I learned that I didn't know it all and I was far from it. So I had to connect with people that did know. And through their guidance and them pointing me in the right directions and all the research that I had to look into, starting a nonprofit was just like starting a business first. So you have to start a business first before, and then you change it to a nonprofit. Had no idea. I was just like, I'm just trying to help people. What are we doing? Um, and there were so many things, from just like legal names and just all the things you name it, like lawyers writing up stuff. Like, it was so much bigger than I thought. Um, but that was the next step, doing the research to really see, what does this look like? Am I going this direction or that direction? And having everything that I needed for. Um, that was, the big thing. And then two, really looking at what's already out there, or three, sorry, what's already out there. Who's already doing it? How are they doing it? What's missing? How can I add value? Right. And yeah, there's some things that you can do that other people are doing, but it was a bigger scope for me. It was really about, how do we add to what is missing so that we can help as from a greater good standpoint, because it's going to take all of us, right? And then just making sure, the co-founder with the nonprofit, just connecting with the right
Mm,
people. I am super emotional about this work because it is my personal story. So I'm always a little more on the emotional side of why we're doing it. But you need good
mm,
balance, especially in business. You need someone. So where my co-founder really provides that level-headed, business-driven, always looking what's next, how are we moving forward? And I'm like, we're helping these people and it's amazing, like, you have to have a good balance. So just making sure that you have the right people around you. And the right people around you are not always family. They're not always like your BFFs. Sometimes that it does fit in that space, but a lot of times it doesn't. And that's okay, because it is about business and growth. And you need people that aren't going to be your yes man, that are not just going to agree with you, but that are going to challenge you and push you when you're uncomfortable.
man, you gave so
And then
much.
from there, just
No, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead. You still going? I was like, wow, she gave
I'm
so
like,
much
and
in
then
that
like I
little.
can keep going.
Like, go ahead, go ahead. Hold on, get the people boy. All right, let me not stop you. I thought that was the end, but we still going. Go ahead.
And then whoever your consumer, whatever your product is, really staying close to it, because they're truly who you're serving. And you want to make sure that it's not just a number, it's really adding value. And you only know that from really staying close. And it's more about the thing and it's more about the person,
Mm,
right? So, yes, you're trying to do this because when you focus on the person and you focus on the need, everything else
I
follows.
love this. I love this. All right, so let me try to see if I can break this back down, because I know some of this might have went over way over some people's head. They might have missed a couple of things. So for those of you listening, Deidra just broke down like some really key gems. I don't know if she got this out the 50 Cent book or this her book that's coming out soon. But what's your why? Because your why is going to keep you invested and engaged. And when those times get rough, you get those brick walls, going to keep you going past the nose, past the, when you about to hit broke, five broke, we ain't got it, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then you hit me with the what was the other gem you hit me with? Uh um you hit me with having the right people surrounded by you. Sometimes people say it's not what you know, it's who you know, right? And then like there's something that you do great, right? And then if you have the right partner with you, they'll help you pick up the pieces for the things that you're not great at, so that you can have the right circle of people with you to help the business grow and elevate. And then what's the you also gave me shoot, I'm trying to do this off head. I should have wrote my notes down.
Let me know if you need some
So
help.
the other one you gave me another one, Jim, which was, all right, help me out.
So no, doing your research.
Yeah, doing your research, which is important, because you have to have that game plan, and so that you can, for lack of better terms, follow the yellow brick road to success. Which is some valuable tips. And there was one more. I just had it at the top of my head. I wish I had my pen here so I could have just wrote everything down while you were spitting. but man, so
what was,
go ahead.
I was trying to think. I'm like, what was my last one? It was about your consumer.
Yeah, and then adding value
when you stay close to them.
Yeah, I remember you said like, I was like, man, that's a mic drop right there. Adding value to, in any business, you got to add value wherever you go, because that's what's going to keep you elevating in business. If you're not adding value, if you're just in it for the buck, you probably not going to be as successful as you want to be. But if you don't think about the monetary stuff and just try to add value, that's when the business becomes really successful. So I love that you mentioned that. And another thing, that piece that you said about nonprofit is so true. When the only difference between, in my personal opinion, between nonprofits and business is that the taxes, right? They're both still businesses. You both have to operate and have those profit and loss margins, and you have to be in the profit. You can't be in the red and navigating there all the time. So starting a nonprofit is starting a business. So I love that you brought that back to reality for people. It ain't just about getting the handouts and grants. You have to operate just like you operate in business. So thank you for breaking that down for us.
Yes. Yeah. And the difference is you're trying to get other people's money, so they want to see everything. You got to tell them everything. You got to get permission. Everything's a vote. Where in your own business, you have a little more flexibility.
So true. That's why all your books and your reports got to be right when you operate a nonprofit. I think sometimes operating a nonprofit is much harder than operating a business. If you ask me personally. I don't know how you feel about that.
I only know about the nonprofit. But I'm gonna agree, because I know some people that are running businesses, and I'm like, man, you ain't working as hard as I am. Just kidding.
I'll second that. So I feel like you're a person that's been full of richness of life experiences. What would you say is one good lesson life has taught you?
Oh, don't doubt yourself.
Ooh, elaborate.
Yeah. Don't doubt yourself. So since I was 18 and I'm 36 now, I knew that I wanted to do this work. I've had a burning desire and passion to do it. And it was my own self-doubt and my own false limiting beliefs that has kept me stuck and just literally existing for years. When I really go back to look at it and I start to question, like, why was that? It was just doubt. It was doubt. It was afraid. It was me being afraid to fail. It was me being afraid to be exposed. But the joy that I have been able to experience in the last 3 years, just from doing this, I'm I'm not mad that it didn't happen sooner, because I had to go through that to appreciate the space and to know where I would never go back to. But that would be my biggest life lesson.
I love it. You almost had me fall up my
Yeah.
chair when you said 36. I was like, man, when they say black don't crack, we are the epitome of that. She over here looking like she, for those who get the visual experience, she out here looking like she in her 20s talking about, when I hit 36, I'm like, wait, 36?
Yes.
So what's some advice
yeah.
you would give, because you spoke on limiting beliefs a little bit, that you would give with somebody who was stuck in that limiting beliefs? They hear this, or they now are in this phase of like trying to reinvent themselves. They might have been at a dead end job that wasn't taking them anywhere, or they might have not took the leap of faith to kind of correct the things that they've been hiding in their life. Or maybe they're just a young person getting out into the world, and they may have, you know, some insecurities based on, you know, how they grew up or the things that they've been hiding. What some advice would you give to a person like that who's trying to overcome that, and maybe, you know, has this idea to start a nonprofit like yourself and do something that could really benefit the world? What's some advice you would give that person?
So advice I would give is really write down, like, what do you feel like is holding you back? Having that dead hard look in the mirror and what is keeping you stuck in this space. And a 9 out of 10, a lot of the times it's going to be a lot of fear. Write down those things that you're fearful of and then go after them. That is the best. If you already fear that it's going to happen, go after them. Chase failure. There's a book about that too. Chase failure, you know, and just try to do the things, because what's going to happen is the very thing that you're afraid of will happen, or the very opposite will happen. So go after it anyway. If you're going to live and settle in a life that you fear, then you might as well go ahead and put yourself in that situation to see what happens. And you would be surprised, because a lot of times, you know, we fear leaving that job, starting that business, taking a new opportunity, moving to that new city. Just do it. See what happens. If you fail, you can come back. If you don't, put a 2 weeks notice in. So if you don't like the job, you could go back to the job you left, right? So, you know, to really chase that failure and don't allow, you know, fear to limit you, because it's all up here. And I'm speaking from experience. And I'm speaking of someone who has been idle and paralyzed for years because of fear. And I feared that people wouldn't like me because they knew I had a reading problem, or that I wouldn't be accepted, and that is from jobs, family, friends, you name it, strangers, like, they're going to know, you know, and that's no way to live. So chase that fear, but be honest on what it is that you fear or what's holding you back. It may not be fear. It may be you feel like you lack something. And if you lack something, then go get the skill. Go do the thing that you know you need to do. And even if you have to do something physical that supports the mental piece of it, do that. I did that. I ran a marathon. It had nothing to do. And every time started with the 5K, 10K, 15K, I got bronchitis. I ran a half marathon and then ran the full. Every time I finished, I was sobbing. I had people who didn't even know me sobbing because they were like, oh man. But little did they know is it was bigger than the race. It was me pushing myself past my limited beliefs of what I could do. And it was a direct connection to my literacy. It was me saying I would never be able to master this. So how can I do something physical that helps me combat that mental thing? So what is something physical I thought I would never be able to master? And along the journey of me doing that, I learned so many lessons, right? I tried something that I didn't think I could do. People supported me along the way. I got tips. Some people even questioned why I was doing it and was a discouragement and didn't even realize it. And all those things happen, but they were all necessary. So whatever that is, just go after it. And you would be surprised that you might get a different outcome.
I love it. Go after it. Face your fears. Rise Urban Nation. And I'll be remiss because we on Rise Urban Nation, so I got a little acronym that I don't know I don't know if it just came to me or if I got it from somewhere, but we want to re-acronize fear, and we want to say face everything and rise.
Yes, I love it.
Fear.
Face everything and
Face
rise.
everything and
Fear.
rise. And that's basically what you've done.
Yes.
And you've given us a blueprint, and you've shared your heart, your story, your soul with us. And man, you about to inspire a nation to tell the truth. So all right. So tell me, what does the future look like? What does the future have in store for you when you look at the future, for what you've been building and creating? What does that look like when you see?
Yeah, so the future right now we're in Dallas because we're virtual. We also are in a couple other states, but it's gonna be worldwide.
Mhm.
Reading Teen Heights will be worldwide, supporting adults, um, and I'm excited. I always say one day it's gonna be so big I'm not gonna be able to do the little things I enjoy,
Mhm.
like the intake calls and checking in and dropping in on the Zooms, to say hi or do little, just little quick sessions to check in because it's going to be so bad because the need is so
Mhm.
great. And I just see the growth because it's necessary. And I think when we really take a look at it, it's necessary.
Yeah. What is literacy? What is the industry of, I guess, nonprofit and literacy look like in that time in the future when you look at it? What was well, let's put it out in the universe. What does it look like? Have
Yeah. It's bridge and it's a continuation. It is not once you are done in the 12th grade, you're just done. There will be bridges that continue to help and support those people that need the extra support. And there not only will be programs that are just helping you get a GED or workforce placement, even though those are great, they're not fixing the true problem. They're
Mhm.
putting a band aid on it so that you can learn a skill so you can go out and get a job,
Mm.
but we will be bridging that gap and we will be hitting it from the root. So that way we're not teaching Deidra how to go get a job, driving a forklift. We are creating and giving her tools to go out and do anything she wants to do whenever she wants to do it.
Yes, I love it. I love it. Deidra, you
Yeah.
are amazing. I can sit here and talk to you forever, I feel like, but I try to keep this at a drive time. So, what projects are you currently working on, and where can people find you?
Yes. So right now we're currently working on or getting into something with United Way that's really going to help accelerate our business so that we can expand our reach and really be able to support adults in ways that we never thought possible. So already doing great work, but we're waiting on something else that's happening. But I feel it's going to happen. So that is what we're working on, and we can be reached at readingtonewheights.org. So that's the website, any of our social media handles. So Facebook, Reading to New Heights, IG, it's reading new underscore heights. And then LinkedIn is Reading to New Heights. So that is where you can find us. If you know someone who needs assistance, if you want to get involved, you want to volunteer, or let's say you can't volunteer, you don't know anyone, but you want to make a monetary. There is something for everyone if you truly want to be involved.
I love it. I love it. And if you didn't catch any of that, don't worry. I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna email her, get all the show notes and all those links and everything from her, and put it in the show notes. Deidre, it's been a pleasure having you on Rise Urban Nation. Any last words of wisdom for the people before we head out? And I know we're gonna get the 50 Cent book, but what any last words of wisdom?
I would just say, like, we're all created for something great. So go after whatever that is for you. Nothing that you've experienced in life is wasted. So figure out what you're supposed to do with it.
Mhm. Love it. Love it. Thank you for those words of wisdom. And to all my listeners, you're going to get more gems when you connect with her. Make sure you show her some love. And hopefully we'll get you to come back in the future when you have other projects you want to share with the people. Okay.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Yes.
That's Deidre, ladies and gentlemen, on another episode of Rise Every Day.